Hey everyone, what is going on? It is Brian. Welcome back to the 7th tier. This is a channel all about 4 roses. One of the questions that I had asked in one of the last videos were in regards to some of the future content, if you'd like to see breakdowns of one recipe, one warehouse, but maybe going down in tier. And I tried to do that with one sample before with OBSQ, or with 2 samples rather. But what I want to do now is I want to take a breakdown of a couple of barrels of the OESO recipe. So we're taking the same recipe, but we're finding 3 different placements for it. So we will start with the video that I went in a little bit of length of before. This is the Bourbon Pursuit Keg and Bottle OESO. It's 11 years old. This is from warehouse MW-25. All right, 56.4%. Next to one from Liquor Barn. This was a couple of years older of a release, still OESO. This comes from warehouse PN, barrel 33 1G. So we have the M warehouse on the west side. We've got P warehouse on the north side. That's 52.2%. And then lastly, we're gonna bring one out that a friend had given me, which is from MACADOODLE'S. This is also a couple years old, still OESO. It is 13 years, 10 months. So it's definitely the oldest one that we are gonna taste tonight. It comes from warehouse RN. It's the barrel 28 1I, 54.2%. So we have warehouse R, warehouse P, warehouse M. If I'm able to find some sort of infographic that talks about or shows the placement of where those rig houses are, maybe that will be informational to see kind of positionally where they are in proximity to one another. So all 3 of these are in the lower 2 spaces in a run, right? We have tier 1, we have tier 2. So all kind of lower. We have from 52.2% up to 56.4%. And we're gonna start here with the one that we had previously reviewed, that MW-25. Have a bit more oak chocolate and some berry fruitiness as well, right off the bat. Kind of sweet, a little bit earthy, but then that kind of oak and a little bit of this kind of licorice or anise type note kind of carries on. So a little bit herbal as well. Let's go ahead and go to this Liquor Barn. The Liquor Barn is a little bit brighter, a little bit richer in the fruit notes. You do not get that herbal characteristic at all. It's still a little bit earthy. It still has a little bit touch of chocolate, like the former one did, but more so just oak and fruit. Exactly like you would expect from the OESO recipe. Let's go ahead and go lastly into that MACADOODLE'S. This MACADOODLE'S is way more oaky, musty, funky. Honestly, it seems like it's a little bit more vanilla in oak than it is red fruit. A little bit of honey, a little bit of nougat. Comes off creamier instead of fruity. Let's go ahead and start back from the beginning and we'll try them on the palate. You can see some of the legs on this glass here. Palate does start off with the red fruits and the slight bit of herbal like we mentioned on the nose. Touch of mintiness to it. Like an Andes mint, because you do get some of that chocolate, so it finishes kind of mint chocolate. Moving into that oak. So on the front, touch herbal and red fruit, and on the back, kind of mint chocolate and oak. Let's transition to that Liquor Barn OESO. Palate's more syrupy, chewy, a little bit of honey, lots of red fruit, and a nice oakiness. It still has some chocolate notes. They are not minty. They are just a little bit earthy, chocolatey, but mainly as it lingers on the palate, you get that oak and red fruit continue. Still a pretty dark toned pour overall. It's not overly sweet, even though it may seem like it's sweeter than the first glass. It's still pretty heavy, saturated, and pretty dark toned, like I mentioned, on the palate. Let's go ahead and transition to that 3rd glass. This one's way different. It starts off a touch more tannic, but overall, it has a lot of espresso, leather, tobacco, oakiness. You don't really get the red fruit as a prominent note at all. If anything, it's more of a secondary note. It's kind of giving some heavy fruit saturation after those primary notes, and it kind of layers on the tongue. And actually, maybe an inverse of the other two, it lingers. Finish continues pretty long, maybe a touch herbal like the first sample. A lot of purple fruits and dark red fruits kind of continue to sit on the palate. Get some toasted vanilla bean, a little bit of caramel in there. It's definitely a little bit more mature of a pour, a little bit more darker toned of a pour as well. While the second sample, I said it was darker toned in a very fruity way, this last glass is darker toned more so in a, like a, I don't know, the kind of flavors that I pull out of the Old Souls, out of the Knife Creek 12-15, out of the Calumet 15, out of, you know, any product like that. Those kind of older 15-ish year pours. I think there are just some tells that this is a little bit older of a pour, and with it come a specific flavor characteristic that sort of gets past the fruitiness that the OESO typically can have. Super easy drinking. It's got a nice chewy palate too, but it does lean into some more of the oak tannins. It's not very dry, like in a dry tannic way, but it does give you a little bit more tannic maturity kind of sitting in there, almost more similar to like the Remus 5 a little bit in that regard. So again, let's go back to the front. Man, compared to the last glass, A seems super bright and super lively. Balanced, chocolate, fruity, sweet, oaky. Second glass, heavier, darker toned, a little bit more spice, but fruit and oakiness. The last glass, very easy drinking, very lazy, very homogenized flavor, low spice, high barrel influence notes, and a little less of the fruitiness. Anyway, guys, might have been a little bit of a long video, but I thought it might be interesting to see how a recipe can change and be a little bit different. I mean, again, we know these are all going to change because they're single barrel products, but I thought it might be interesting to see if they have some variance in flavor as we pop out of different warehouses and into different runs. I hope this is interesting. I hope it was informational to you all. Let me know if there are other things you all want to hear me talk about here on the channel in the comments down below, or shoot me an email, the7tier@gmail.com. If you've tried other OESO recipes, if you've tried any of these bottles specifically, let me know what your thoughts were down below in the comments. Until next time, everybody, I'll see you all later.